Greetings and good evening, friends. Thank you for allowing us into your home at the appointed hour. I appreciate being your host for the evening's event. In fact, this is an event for me. I get to be here with someone for whom I have a great deal of respect and knows more about television and film than I could ever possibly hope to, and he's likely forgotten most of it. I am here with the great and powerful Lou Wasserman's ghost. My friend, greetings and welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, and golly, that's quite an introduction. I wish I knew as much as I had forgotten, but that's what happens when you get old.
True
Uh,
story.
what I don't know, I can make a pretty good guess about. Let's put it that way, based
There
on
you go.
life's experience. So it is always a pleasure to be with you in any context, and especially in this one. And I wish for this show, not for life, but hail and farewell to Vash and welcome Culture Casino. And here we
Hey,
go again.
yeah, here we go again, indeed. And this evening, I think our primary subject or only subject, and this is definitely not the only subject we'll ever cover, but for tonight's purposes, we have to talk about the studio life, and what happens during the exchange of ownership in a studio fight, which we're about to see. Now, this has happened many times in history. In this particular situation, we'll be talking about Warner Brothers Paramount Motion Pictures acquisition potentially versus the acquisition by a third party streaming service known as Netflix. And there's some nuances in a couple of articles that we're going to draw upon, and I'm going to rely on your expertise, Lou,
Oh.
to get us out of this problem.
Now, if only the two studios involved would rely on my expertise and pay me for it, that would be a swell thing.
I
Uh,
agree, and everybody should pay you for that. Let me tell you, I think you'd be a
no,
you'd be an excellent middleman. There's another name for
I
that, but for right now, you're just our budsman, and that's another
okay. Well,
fancy word.
I'll take that with pride and with honor, and try and stay true to that calling.
There you go. We have a couple of super chats before we even begin the show, so
Ooh, how exciting!
I will go ahead and bring those up on the screen, and you will tell me what they say. You will be reading our chats for the evening.
I purposely did not have Ovaltine tonight, so I'm good. Great to
Oh.
see you back. Long live Six Point Texas. Well, as you've learned from our prior episodes, I don't think Six Points Texas is long for this world. But
Hmm.
as far as Ovaltine, I'm all in favor of Ovaltine. I like Ovaltine, and so there you
Drink
go.
your Ovaltine. In fact, those were wonderful commercials. If you go back in time, I think they're
Yep.
great.
Well,
Uh,
anything that came in a jar that way, the Hershey stuff all came in those tins with the hard to pry off lids and stuff. And Ovaltine coming in a jar somehow endeared
t-
it to me right away.
Tang came in a jar. I was always
Well, yeah.
like amazed by that. And Gatorade came in a can, and you
Was
had
it
to
originally? I thought originally it was like those plastic bottles, and then I don't
you
remember on
you had
Gatorade.
to actually undo like the lid of this can in order to get to the powder back in the old days, back when it was a powdered substance that became mixed with water. And
Yeah.
so did McDonald's orange drink, which is an entirely different conversation and two different drinks for sure. But we have one more super chat, and then we can move on and say hi to the people out there. For you, Lou, what is this
Ah,
this
from
evening?
Juliet, who is our wrench sans peer. She is the great wrench of all wrenches,
True.
and waving back across the pond to you, Juliet, for
Yeah.
all the good work you do.
It's either terribly early in the morning for her or it's terribly late because she hasn't been to bed yet. I don't know which, but what is it? A 9 hour time, 6 hour time difference?
Eight or 9 or 6, I lose track.
Yeah,
I guess it's 6 now. When I was
yeah.
in LA, it was 8. But
Yeah.
the fun thing in those days, when I was in my teens and 20s, and we go to London, uh, there were all these over the pole flights that left LA and got into Heathrow at like 5 a.m. or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But of course, the hotel rooms didn't open up until around noon. And so it was great sport for the Brits to go around to all the English hotels and see the Americans sitting on their luggage in the lounge with eyes, down to their knees. And there'd be a TV in the corner playing Wimbledon in the summertime. It
There you
was
go.
like, oh God, can I just go to bed? So those were the days.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I always encourage a healthy layover. And when I say healthy
Yes.
layover,
Whoop, what happened?
say stay at a hotel that night. you feel better about yourself the following day.
Absolutely true.
You know, and then after your layover, then you travel the rest of the distance. For example, if I were flying from the West Coast to Japan, I would go through LAX because that's really the only international solid way to do it. Land in Hawaii, rent a hotel, and take a nap in Honolulu. I would wake up 11 hours later, fully refreshed and a little bit adjusted to what is about to happen to me the moment I get to Tokyo, and continue my flight that day.
Absolutely. In both directions, not just going, but coming back too.
Yep. No, you definitely, the best pause button in the world if you travel is Hawaii. Just so
and nowadays, interestingly enough, with all of the theme park discussions about the wonderful world of Abu Dhabi and environs, that's become the layover spot for a lot of people heading for the Far East.
Yeah.
My little brother, who lives in Dallas, was going to Singapore, I think it was, and spent a night in Abu Dhabi en route, going that direction.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of those customers for those theme parks are not locals. They're strictly people in transit for a day or two.
Oh yeah, and again, Honolulu, you have so many beautiful hotels to stay on right there by the
places
airport.
To eat, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic restaurants. The beach of Waikiki. You can see the fabulous Diamond Head and everything else, and you know maybe you get Don Ho to do a luau.
I'll never forget the first time we went there when I was a kid as a family, and you went to the Dole pineapple plant, which isn't there anymore because they don't grow pineapples. And in the waiting room, they had a typical office type water cooler thing, but it didn't have water. It had pineapple juice.
Pineapple juice, yeah.
Yeah.
No, all of these things I experienced at a young age, and for a long, long time they existed up until America decided we didn't want real things or real food anymore, and that's an entirely different conversation. We have one last, I believe, or maybe two last super chats.
Super sticker from Zombie Box Reviews.
Our good friend Andy over there in the UK. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, is that who that is? Okay.
Yeah. He's a moderator on the HCast and many of the other shows that I do when I'm talking to the UK folks. And then again, we have another one of these orange thingies.
Also,
super sticker.
So that's two in a row from the same guy. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I'm impressed.
Andy is lovely, and I appreciate Andy so much.
Wow, there's a third? Ooh, my goodness.
Yeah. Is there really? Did we end up with another? My goodness. We are so blessed with Super Chats today. But what we're also blessed with is information and story time. And I'm going to let Lou tell a story around the story we're going to talk about because nobody could tell it better. He's a more qualified writer than and probably producer, director. I'm going to give him a lot of accolades he probably doesn't deserve, but
set designer,
sure.
Prop designer.
He probably could do sound. He could be a sound engineer.
I can. Although I have friends who do it better.
See, and that's the problem, right? Because I could do electrics, and I knew people that did it better. So, but different conversation. Let's get to it. First and foremost, Warner Brothers Discovery is going to go to somebody, and that right now there's two legitimate bidders, and I would argue there's really only one legitimate bidder and one ridiculous thing that is merely a barrier.
There was an illegitimate bidder. Are you calling Ted Sarandos a bastard?
Yes, and whatever fake co-president that he has there with him. I really do feel like once Reed Hastings left, so did the legitimacy of Netflix. But that's an entirely different conversation.
Right.
It's the thing that destroyed Eisner in the Disney company. If we want to talk honestly, is when Mr. Wells died. Mr. Wells was a genius. He was the yin to the yang. Which, if you want successful Disney, you need a yin and a yang. You need a Walt and a Roy. And Disney, for a long time, had to search for those people. They found them, and then one of them, unfortunately, was no longer with us. That probably started the beginning of the end for Eisner's era, and it was unfortunate because Disney was on the best golden ride they could have possibly imagined. So let's jump in.
And more importantly, just to interject,
sure,
Eisner understood his role.
Oh, indeed.
When I went to the premiere press party for Fantasmic at Disneyland, and they had a press conference, And
Yep.
people asked him about third gates and about the strawberry fields, about all these different things. And he said, you got to remember something. He said, when Walt was doing this, as brilliant as he was, in many ways, he had nothing to lose
Right.
because it was all bet on the line and see what happens. He says, I have to be able to preserve a multinational billion-dollar corporation. And so I can't take the kinds of risks that Walt did. I have a role as a protector of the status quo and then innovate. And that's a totally different mindset. And he got it. He understood it. For better or worse, he acted upon it. And this guy now hasn't a clue.
Yeah, well, he also hired the right minds. I mean, they went on to form entirely other studios just to spite him, because once he lost his direction, he lost the moxie, let's say,
Yeah.
and the other people that could do as well elsewhere went on to start their own elsewhere, which was amazing, and that includes DreamWorks, SKG.
Sure.
And so on and so forth.
And it's given us a lot of great stuff from all those other people too. But they all, what did Walt say about, we have to remember it all started with a mouse,
It did.
Yeah.
Well, let's get this last super chat in just because we can, and then we'll move on to the conversation around Warner Paramount.
You're lovely too, Culture, and no, I'm not trying to hit on you.
No, it's fine. Yeah, my friend D-Day Cobra, otherwise known as Jeremy Griggs over at Geeks and Gamers, he has some kind of love tax going on right now. I'm not sure if that's related, but it's fine.
Tax?
You can say you love me, and you don't
say it softly, because if Gavin Newsom hears about it, he'll try and pass it.
Yeah, well, that's also true, and he already has. If you're a billionaire and you bailed out of California, bless you. All right, let's get to the story. This is important. Lou, I'm going to ask you first and foremost. Have you read through this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And this one here, folks, is Warner calling Paramount's motion to expedite trial and exercise an urgency theater. No, I think it's a mandatory thing.
Well, here's you have to understand the background of this, everybody. If you don't, I'm going to bore you if you do, but
please
that's
do.
Life.
Yeah, please do.
Paramount has filed a motion saying, show us what you got. We think you've been unfair to us. We think you've ignored our offers for whatever ulterior motives or friendships with Netflix. And we'd like to see the paperwork of how you arrived at the decision that deal is better than our deal. And we want to see it quick because we're heading up against deadlines on these various other activities in court. So they filed what's called a motion to expedite trial as a way of getting, what happened before trial? Everybody here knows discovery, going faster. Now, the only reason when somebody tells you we want to expedite it, for you to say, oh, it's just urgency theater, it doesn't mean anything, throw it aside, is because what you're asking for, they ain't got. They ain't got it. They're asking for all kinds of things, saying, well, you claim that our offer is no good because you don't believe that all the banks, I mean, we're talking big international banks that have offered to back it, are not going to come through with the money. My obvious answer to that is, if you're a shareholder and you offer to sell, and the banks don't come up with the money, you don't sell. What's the big deal? But the obvious counter to that is, well, you've got big banks involved too. What about them? Aren't they any more or less fragile than the ones we've got? And so there's all kinds of shadings to this, and saying, nah, we don't want to give you this stuff is not an answer. It's a cover-up.
Obfuscation, fancy word. Yeah, fancy word for cover-up. But in this, and it's even broader than that, because if they hit their mark and their target, which it sounds like they do based on Mr. Man in the glasses there, the Zaz. Zaz actually has got his pants around his ankles, and he still hasn't been able to pull them up because they don't have this documentation. And the documentation they do have, if they end up in discovery with those emails and the backgrounds for those phone calls and everything else that was going on, then it's going to expose the fact that the only reason to turn down Paramount's offer is politically based. And
beyond that, you should understand that in a court of law, well, I don't want to, is not an excuse.
And judges hate that. They just hate it.
Not when it's a corporation, not when it's regulated, not when it's got shareholders out there. You might be one. You never know. You might have money in a mutual fund or something that has stock in Warner Brothers, and this affects you.
And Paramount. You might be in
Yeah.
an entertainment serviceable fund that, like, the Black Pill runs. What is it? BlackRock, excuse me, same thing. But anyway, sorry, a little mash joke for you.
Oh.
But look, Warner Brothers Discovery responded Wednesday to Paramount's motion for an expedited trial in Delaware Chancery Court, which is trying to redeem themselves from a judge who made a very bad decision and then was called on the carpet for it by other judges who are more powerful, which is all involved in the
Which is
Elon
kind of
Musk
happening
deal.
a lot in our world, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's like, hey, you're not motivated by the law, so yeah, you're peace out. Anyway, so
Wait, can I make a general statement about the
Certainly.
state of the judiciary in our nation?
Certainly, please.
We
do.
see these big cases, whether it's Warner Brothers or whether it's about ICE or whether it's about anything, and see these judges making these crazy, to common
Rulings.
sense size rules.
Yeah.
I want you to understand those people sit there 9 to 5, 5 days a week as a judge, or 4 days, and they rule on all kinds of cases.
Yeah.
So if you think these high profile ones are the only ones that they put their thumb on the scale, think again.
Indeed.
A crook is a crook is a crook, whether it's over 50 cents or 50 billion. And that's what they're scared to death of, is the exposure on the big cases that will then ripple down to the little cases. And if we had an extra hour, I could tell you a story about that, but we'll do that another time.
Well, remember, with judges and politicians, they put their hand behind their back for two reasons. One, to take a bribe, and the second, to have their arm twisted. Those are the two reasons that a
There
judge
you go.
does.
Or to count their fingers after they've shaken hands with the other
Well,
guy.
let me tell you, the 5-finger discount in court is a real thing. Anyway, let's continue. So the David Ellison Company wants Warner Brothers Discovery to defend its chosen deal with Netflix, which you can't argue is better, and we're going to show you why in just a moment with another article. But you can't argue it's better over Paramount's rival hostile bid, and filed this particular motion, which they have to do. This is the other part that Jill does the audience a disservice in this article by not revealing that nothing would happen in a quick way if it wasn't demanded in this kind of a court motion. This has to be done.
You can't just say, well, I'll trust you. Bring it sometime next week. Not in this world.
Yeah, especially with Netflix, Warner Brothers Discovery. Anyway, so they filed a suit demanding a copious documentation, which right now, as LW Ghost, my friend Lou here, said, I don't believe exists. I don't think there's copious at all. I think there should be. I think any notes you're going to get are going to be more exposure than they are copious. I don't know. What do you think?
And what they're really afraid of is if they manufacture some in a big hurry and they get outed for doing that because they didn't quite cross all the T's and dot the I's and it gets exposed, then where are they? That's really a crime all by itself. That is an actual real live go to jail crime. Okay.
For a long time, not a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because this guy Zaslav has $500 million in golden parachute no matter what happens on this deal.
True.
It's hard to spend when you're in a cell.
Yeah, well, January 21's the deadline, which is why we're going to expedite this, speed it up, get her done. And I'm going to tell you, one of the reasons why we're going to be talking about the next story has to do with time frame. Because now they're terrified on the other side of this deal that if this is forced to go fast, they're not ready. And their stock price is starting to show that too, and we'll get into that when we get there. But
well, the other thing is there have been not the biggest, but the next rank of large holders of Warner Brothers stock have said publicly, gee, I don't know, this Paramount deal looks like it's better. And if they're on the edge and this documentation doesn't happen, is that going to encourage them to go back to Warner Brothers or not? Hardly.
Well, I think it terrifies the shareholders that are invested that have a decent chunk of it, and they don't want to be looking at a collapsing stock price for any of these entities.
And as we've mentioned elsewhere, but let's say it again,
Sure.
Remember, at Warner Brothers, you have this Discovery spin-off idea of all the things like CNN and the Discovery Channel
Yeah,
and all
global
those.
networks. Yeah, global
Right.
networks.
But
Yeah.
at folks across the way and up the way from Disney there at Comcast, they've already done it. They put all of their junk in one basket called Versant and spun it off as a separate corporation. And what happened in the first week, the stock plummeted 22% or something like that.
Oh, it's collapsing even as we speak.
Oh, and what's interesting is when we were going over it before, we talked about the things that are in it and said that the one really good thing in it is the Golf Channel because people like to watch golf. But you know what? All of these sports deals have expirations. And at that point, you're supposed to bid more.
Yeah, the rights.
What if you can't because you're broke?
Yeah, and that's the other problem. If you don't have an underwriter that's willing to, prop up that deal, which is what all these, including Disney. Disney always goes looking for an underwriter. Everybody does. If you're looking to make a movie, you don't use your own money.
No,
you use OPM, other people's money. That's
fair enough to say that Bank of America got big as they are mostly by financing Hollywood. They get a lot of these loans to the studios,
winning because there are banks that lost a lot. I mean, and it's just like what happens with the leveraged capital markets to invest in like a tech startup, right? And that's why what was it? Silicon Valley Bank failed. Is they made a lot of really bad deals with a lot of startups that were never going to be anything ever at all. That's bad. And again, that's another reason to rush this. So Paramount contends that this expedited trial is needed to compel Warner Brothers Discovery to come to the table with their disclosures that they're supposed to have already provided them with.
And isn't it ironic that the word discovery is in their name?
Oh man, it's insane. So this is it's wildly fortunate for us. Let's just put it that way, because this plays on many levels. But Paramount has launched a hostile bid to tender an offer and has set its own expiration date of January 21. Yet Paramount has the unilateral and unfettered ability to extend that expiration, and it admits that this offer is neither its best and final, and even possible of closing anytime this year, which nobody can prove, even on their side of the equation. Look, what we're witnessing right now is two people using a lot of legal language to try to confuse outsiders, because the judge isn't going to get confused, right?
Right.
Everybody's going to be compelled to deliver on everything they're required to deliver on within the given time frame. And hence the reason this motion had to be filed, to ensure that that happens in a timely fashion. Right?
Right.
There we go.
All right. Of course, so we have the word timely.
Yeah. And that's the problem here. And that's the problem here, is that Paramount does not believe they're going to get timely disclosure of everything that's involved in Discovery, so they can understand everything that's going to be what this case is all about, which is Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't want to sell to them for political reasons, because that would violate their fiduciary duty. It's well within their fiduciary duty to deliver the highest possible return for their shareholders. And absent that, they have zero excuse to not take the best offer. Sorry, it's that simple. We got 2 super chats, and then we're going to jump to the next article. Lou, let's get this up here for you to read. This is from our friend
I'm off
Andy.
to bed. Have a great stream, fellas. Well, golly, I envy you. Off to bed.
Yeah. But he's in the UK. That's pounds sterling. He's got to get some rest.
Well, so
unlike
he's a morning sleeper like me. We have that in common. Zombie Box Review.
I stink at sleeping. I don't know how you sleep morning, noon, night.
Well, I tell you what. Lately, I've finally been getting I was getting 3 or 4 at a time before various things woke me up.
Right.
Lately, I've been getting 6 or 7. You know what's changed? I'm dreaming again, or at least that I can remember to be. And they're weird, but it's better to have that, which tells me I'm having deeper sleep than I was before, which I knew.
My last several evenings, and again, once I took the heart monitor off, I actually slept. I'm having the weird dreams too. So there's that. But I will tell you that there you cannot sleep in a hospital, and I spent many days in a hospital trying to. They wake you up, they poke, they prod you, and all that other stuff. And I thought I didn't sleep before, but hospitals invent whole new ways for you to not sleep.
Oh yeah, they do.
All right, we got one last one here from Mark. Hey, Mark, what's up, buddy?
The least enjoyable part of my job is dealing with lawyers and judges, so I can confirm Lou's low opinion of judges is much too kind. Well, I don't have a low opinion in general, but there's a whole raft of them who think, as they say, that their excrement has no odor. And look, I've always said about judges, about doctors, they have to know what they don't know and still be willing to take the knife and cut you open and do what they got to do. That takes a certain level of bravado and ego and whatever that is good for the function of their job. But it is not good if it melts over into every other function that they do. So,
Well, and again, this is what worries me about Hollywood deals, especially when they're not in Hollywood. Why are we in Chancery Court in Delaware, you ask? Because that's where the incorporations for these companies are.
And why are they there, you might ask? Because the rules are good for them there. And why does Delaware make those rules so good? Because they want the business.
And guess what? They're losing that business, or have been, because one of their judges made the worst decision ever imaginable and pulled the compensation package for a CEO that their entire stock membership voted for just a few years earlier.
Yeah.
So,
well, what do the stockholders have to do with it? I'm in charge. Yeah, right.
No. And not only that, who's the largest stock shareholder? That would be the CEO. So it's incredibly frustrating. And the activist that made all of that happen not only embarrassed himself several years later, he also is
let me correct you. They don't embarrass themselves because they have no shame.
That's true.
You cannot instill shame in the shameless, and you cannot instill embarrassment in those who are not ever embarrassed.
The fact that they eventually lost is embarrassing enough, and they have to live with it, which I enjoy. But regardless, Elon Musk is going to get paid the $60 billion or whatever it is. And it's not like he's not going to get to be the world's first trillionaire. It's still going to happen. It's just the minute that the IPO goes live on SpaceX, look, I'm not giving you stock advice. This guy is not giving you stock advice. Are you, Lou?
No, not at all. Okay. Not at all.
I'll just say that I'm going to be investing in SpaceX when the IPO goes live. So there's that.
Well, there you go.
Anyway. We have to get around since we're pretty.
He also invested in cucumbers, so take that with a grain of.
That's true.
Since
we're decently invested,
salt. I don't know.
Anyway, since we're decently invested in the show now, we're almost a half an hour in. If my eyeglasses
we can
are
go
working.
As long as you want to go.
No. I was told I was only allowed to operate this within an hour, and that's not by
more or less an hour. We always go about an hour 10, and that's life.
Sure. But not only the boss that runs the channel, but the boss that runs my life. I have certain directives, so there's that. But
you must fulfill the prime directive.
There you go.
Which is don't make mama unhappy.
No, you really can't. And it's just not good business, because that means dinner may not be quite as good the following evening. And I count on that. And that, clean towels, clean sheets,
Humble pie is always a dish best served warm with ice cream on top.
Indeed, anyway. With a little vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
So a little chocolate topping. But,
anyhow.
Let's keep going.
Mark, I don't know what you do, but if you chose to do a job where you deal with those people,
Mark,
I salute you and I question your sanity. But what
Mark is one of the greats. He supports a great many channels and does
just so you know, Mark,
things.
I would have in my career been richer, famouser, and much more secure personally, financially, politically, whatever, if I'd agreed to work with assholes. But I wouldn't. And I paid the price, but I kept the integrity, and that's. I
was supposed to be a lawyer or a politician.
Me too.
I didn't do either of those things.
Well, and I, what was this movie now where it's a cubicle and a bunch of cubicles? And I used to go visit friends who had followed that path.
Oh,
And
it's
I'd go to these
so terrible.
cubicles on a floor of cubicles in a building full of, I was talking about Dilbert.
Oh,
I always said there for the grace of God was not me,
no.
And they all have, wonderful careers and money and all kinds of stuff that I didn't do, but I don't feel bad about it. I feel, well, I've said this before. Oh, there you. Oh, I understand a little bit about that.
There you go. Yeah.
I had a good friend who was a claims adjuster, and he always got his great tickets for the Dodgers because he dealt with a body shop that had season tickets, and we'd give it to him for giving them a good ruling on something. So, anyway,
the other career I was supposed to do is take over my grandfather's company. And you
can I ask in general what they did?
No, but we can talk about it offline.
Okay.
No, it would be revelatory because it became such a large entity eventually.
See, and my father didn't want me to go into the business that he was in, that his father was in at all. I worked down there for several years, but
I did too. I delivered from the age of 14 on. So I started my first job at 14. You can't really do that anymore. So. Anyway, we got to get to this next story because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is the payoff for everything we built up to with the last one. So if you're still with us, folks, and haven't been bored by our banter, I will tell you that Netflix is in a panic. It's one of the reasons why I panicked. I labeled the story that Netflix is in a panic. Everybody's in a panic because Paramount's decided to put the thumb screws to them. So, with this particular story from Deadline yet again, and again, Joel Goldsmith once again, Netflix has considered shifting their deal for Warner Brothers to all cash. Lou, you're a smart guy. I know you read this story.
Yeah.
Why all of a sudden is this maneuver?
The word versant might mean something to do with it, but hey, instead of giving you stock in a thing that's going to plummet, we'll give you more money if we can find it, and we're going to get it from big banks, and they're reliable to pay us to pay you. But the other guys, those big banks, they're not reliable to pay you. Come on, guys.
Not even the guy that has $77 billion in his bank account.
Oh. And please don't forget, everybody, when they try and tell you this is all political and, Orange Man Bad is on the side of Paramount, so's Pocahontas.
Which is weird, right?
So's Jane Fonda.
Oh.
And it's not weird if you understand that if Netflix takes over Warner Brothers and buys up all of that IP, they can say tomorrow, oh, you want to see Batman? You want to see Superman? You want to see whatever? You better buy a subscription to our show and we can raise the price and you're stuck. Well, and at that point, who needs movie theaters? And at that point, all those movie theaters go out of business. All the people that work there have no jobs. All the people in the food court that lived off of it have no jobs. All the people did you see where Saks is going bankrupt, for God's sake?
No. Look,
that means no taxes, no revenues, no whatever, regardless whether you're a blue state, a red state, a green state, it doesn't matter. It's
the cascading effects to the economy is catastrophic. If you allow Netflix to own Warner Brothers Discovery, you're going to lose the even now limited to likely 17 days of a capital window. And you're right.
And by the way, that window is largely there to qualify for the Oscars and the other awards.
And that's it.
And since those awards are becoming so totally superfluous to everybody's figuring, who cares? Who cares at some point?
They give them away for garbage. I mean, do you realize that the last, 5 years of award winners, you know who did a video on this, a great video on this is Paul Chatto recently, talking about the fact that Best Picture nobody's gone to see for the last 5 years?
And here's the other interesting stat that came out today. It used to be if you won an Oscar, then on your next movie, they'd put starring Academy Award winner with the logo and everything else, and that would help the box office.
Not anymore.
Do you know who has now become the number one actor, actress in the history of the movies as far as sheer box office of the productions they were in? Zoe Saldana.
Yeah.
Because of all these big blockbusters that she was in. It's got nothing to do with her or very little, but she just happened to be in the right movies, and wow.
Oh,
I mean,
Guardians of the Galaxy,
yeah, right.
Dances with Blue People, and the other thing that she was recently in.
And so it doesn't matter when she does the one about the transvestite murderer drug dealer,
right?
Because who cares, right? It's her off week, so she'll do that.
Well, no, it's so that she can stay in the contention for being considered an actress and not just a blockbuster film.
Anyway, the point is that the value of the awards is getting close to moot. It's getting close to what it should have been all along for the Golden Globes, because that's a whole other story about how corrupt they are. But the Oscars used to mean something. Now, not so much. Not so much.
And this is the other thing. I mean, One Battle After Another is the worst movie it could possibly be. A love letter to the bad guys is what it was. And look, you can think of it whatever you will. You may have seen it. I think it's the worst Paul Thomas Anderson ever made. And I also think that the fact that when it went out into the world, it was set up to be what it was, which wasn't a winner. It didn't make money in the box office. It was set up as
propaganda. Yeah. And I mentioned this, I forget on which show this week, but I'm facing a real dilemma that I've kind of decided. All of my life in the biz, I have been eligible to vote on various awards that you see.
Right.
And I just got my final 5 for the DGA.
Right.
And there are none of them that usually I vote for one that's popular and it gets into the mix, at least if it doesn't win. But all 5 are far left propaganda pieces. And I got to tell you something. For the first time in my life, I think I'm just not going to vote. Because to me, to say, well, yeah, it was propaganda and it was wrong and it was promoting bad values and all that, but man, was it well directed. It's like saying, well, yeah, Mussolini was a fascist, but he made the trains run on time. I can't do that. I can't ethically do that. And so I think I'm going to
Keir Starmer is so disappointed in you. Anyway, let's get to this article. So here we are at the point where Netflix has to pivot. They're being forced to pivot to make this cash offer. And
they're wait a minute. It says considers. They put it out there. Everybody talks out there, as opposed to here's the money. Let's make the deal.
Well, they have to say it that way, because what if they can't come up with the money, Lou?
Well, that's. You don't say it until you can come up with the money, which is what Paramount did.
But let's talk about this, okay? Netflix could come up with the money. Netflix intentionally, prior to making this offer, knowing full well it'd have to be substantial, they did a 10-for-1 split of their stock.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened to their stock?
I'm going to guess people said it's probably ain't worth what it used to be.
Well, yeah, of course, 10-for-1 split. I think that basically took it at like $1,000 a share and took it down to $100 a share, and it went down from there.
Yeah, well.
So the reason there's a shift is because there's a hostile takeover that's worth $30 cash. All cash. And the Zaslav company is good for the money. And it doesn't matter from whence it comes. Everybody involved in this is trying to be involved in this. The only person
they keep putting up the red herring that, but some of it's coming from the Arabs and that won't pass regulation. But the money from the Arabs specifically comes with a no management involved deal.
Strings. Yeah.
So that's bullshit.
Yeah, they can't install board members.
Yeah.
And look, that's the only privilege you really get with being a massive shareholder, other than the privilege of knowing that, you can yell at length at, the CEO for losing your money. Regardless, Netflix's offer is only $27.75 for Warner Brothers. And that's for just that business. That's their other argument, Lou. They don't want the superfluous garbage cable networks. They don't want CNN. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They want it not because it makes money, but because it keeps the other guys from having it and taking it out of the ball game politically. I've learned from gaming. I always tell people I'm an old fart gamer and I still like Civilization 4. But one thing you learn when you play games like that is it's not just about having big armies and conquering other people. It's about taking territory that denies them resources.
Well, and here's the other problem. Exactly. Like that's when you play Risk, right? Risk is a resources game, whether or not you believe it or not. So when you look at this particular deal, there's 1,000 reasons to approach it the way it's being approached, but only for the Netflix side of the equation is a delay, because you have no reason to believe that you're going to pass regulatory scrutiny, whether it be with the SEC or the FTC. I'm bringing in two organizations now because there's elements people don't consider, like whether or not fiduciary duty is actually being put under consideration when making this decision. And that's why that's why the Delaware Chancery Court is going to try to make the best possible decision in the other pending legal matter, because they've already been called out and lost substantial business for the state of Delaware. Right, Lou?
Right.
They don't want that to happen again. They, unlike the state of California, which is perfectly fine with oil companies marching out of there like they are, being threatened by Patton with tanks.
Well, and the city of New York and the state of New York, did you see who left New York for Virginia? Charles Schwab.
Oh, yeah.
Is gone.
They didn't even go to North Carolina. They didn't even go to North Carolina.
North Carolina, by the way, just for the first time in its history, recorded that there are now more registered Republicans than Democrats.
Yep. And that whole state is going to flip the other way. And that's and that's going to be insane. South Carolina was already there. By the way, if you want cheap gas, you live in North Carolina, especially if you live in what's the major city there? Charlotte. You live in Charlotte, drive south, take the extra 20 minutes, go south, hit South Carolina. There's like 4 gas stations just south of there, way cheaper gas.
Yeah,
and that's the other problem. State of California.
This is what used to happen between Washington and Oregon. One of them had a sales tax and one of them had a property tax.
That's true.
So you lived in the one with no property tax, but you bought your car and all your major stuff across the border because there was no sales tax.
No sales tax. Yeah. And you save money in the long run.
Battleground, it's called, right on the border, across the river from Portland. And that's what they did. People vote with their feet and their wallets, folks.
And their money.
Yeah.
And that's the bigger part of this conversation that nobody's having is that the business side of this argument is paramount. There's no argument to be made for Netflix. There really isn't. Not even a political one, because that doesn't make sense. Because if you think about the people that have decided to be on the wrong side of this equation politically, you have Pocahontas, as you mentioned, and many other people in Washington that are unwilling to let this go forward if it's Netflix.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it was a battle between two big corporate giants, or three, you might say.
Briefly.
It's become about telling the truth, which is a crime if you're not doing it all by itself. Paramount would destroy Warner Brothers. Oh, really?
I don't read comments anymore.
They're shills. They're shills.
They are. Yeah, well, because I know these people, and you know these people too. Everybody in there's pretending. The reason everybody's anonymous when you write comments for Deadline is because you don't want people to know, you're blatantly, openly, revolting.
Well, that's the age in which we live for all websites and comments and things. So anyway, we don't know how it's going to come out, but I can kind of guess, which is that Paramount's going to win. I believe. I have believed since the beginning. Because it's a better deal, period.
Well, and
And
it's going
because
to
they're
pass.
telling the truth. And because the Ellisons are tenacious bastards.
Oh,
And they don't
especially
like being
Larry.
messed with. And
Especially
why
Larry.
I keep saying, look, this guy Sarandos and this guy Zaslav, for whatever I may think
They
of them
should have
morally,
known.
ethically, and whatever, to be a captain of industry at that level, you're supposed to have a basic understanding of the personalities you're dealing with, the ones you like, the ones you hate, everybody else. And to walk into this and think, oh, well, if we screw them, they'll just turn the other way and go away, is the most amazing stupidity that now in Sarandos, I cut him some slack because, as I've said many times, to me, he's the Joker. He's the guy who just lets to watch the world burn. But the other guy,
He was something special. I mean, let's be honest. But that was when the other guy was there, Hastings. Reed's the guy with the brain. He's the whole reason that Netflix succeeded in the first place with their rental mechanism, and he's the whole reason they moved forward because of a roommate of his, I believe, at the time, with the electronic distribution via streaming.
yeah. And when you look at that picture, if for those who do not recognize the architecture, that's the same sidewalk where Jack and Harry Warner walked.
Oh yeah,
Okay. That's the same place where
His-
Bogart and Sidney Greenstreet and everybody else walked.
history.
And to say it has low or fallen the mighty, damn. And I used to walk there a lot too, but then that was
Well,
another story.
it's like every time I walk in the Burbank location, which you and I can talk about at length, but it's like the courtyards, the areas where the history was, you could feel it. It drips.
Yes.
Drips. There's weight to it. And again, this is why this particular show exists. It's to talk about the weight of Hollywood, the cultural relevance of Hollywood, and the fact that it's being squandered by the likes of men like this, who they don't look at the business the same way it used to be looked at. They look at spreadsheets. These are
They
spreadsheet
see the present
warriors.
as a means to the future, and they see the past as irrelevant.
And that future is basically, how many yachts do I get to own?
I only want one. I saw one I really liked yesterday too. Anybody looking for a birthday present? It's only 3.5 million.
Have you ever owned a boat?
I have not owned one. I have.
It is a
enjoyed it.
disaster to own. You have no idea.
I don't care.
Oh
Not
man,
with this one. I'll send you the link later. And if you know anybody with 3.5 million who
more
doesn't want to subscribe to my Patreon but does want to do me a favor, boy,
it's more expensive than a trophy wife, dude. You do not want that.
I don't want a trophy wife.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying.
I mean, even when I didn't have a wife, I didn't want a trophy wife.
Dude, this is a private jet. You don't want this. This is.
I don't want a private jet. If I wanted a private jet, I'd buy it, and my little brother, the ex-pilot, would fly it, and I'd have that covered. But I'll buy into net jets, where I can say, "Hey, pick me up on Tuesday at so and so," and
by the way,
by
the way, fractional ownership is a reasonable consideration.
Yeah.
But look, just flying private you can totally do reasonably, and
I hate airports.
I
hate
I have a private
ritual.
airport just a few hundred yards from me. You know, if I want to go someplace. But
I sent Culture, by the way. Culture's looking to join me out here in the freer lands. And I sent him a link to a place the other day that had its own runway and hangar.
Yep.
So you could fly your own little plane in there.
Yeah.
Vash's wing walker lady would be right at home, So.
I have to tell you that it's not unappealing, but I know enough people who have been unalived by their own poor flight of their Dr. Killer.
Well, there is that too, and there's weather here, unlike in California where there isn't any mostly.
Yeah.
But,
so it is what it
anyway, but yeah, this boat, I tell you, there's 2 or 3 I like, but this is a brand new one from New Zealand. It's a 65-foot catamaran that'll cruise at 33 knots, and at the
which
lower
is fast
speed
for a boat.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
At 10 knots, it has a range of 2,800 nautical miles. So you can go anywhere pretty much because you can stop for gas somewhere. But wow,
Well, and
So,
that's the thing you have to consider when you're looking at a private plane too, is the range.
yeah, but
So
I wouldn't live on one, and I could see living 6 months of the year on a boat.
I could
So,
actually see living on a private plane, but that's a different conversation
well,
entirely.
Gene Barry did it best, Amos Burke, Secret Agent, and ever
Yeah.
since then, it's gone downhill as a concept for me.
On that note, I'll just say this. You and I both believe that the best possible deal is Netflix with Paramount. Excuse me, not
Wait,
Netflix. Excuse
what
me.
did you just
Warner
say?
Brothers. I said the wrong thing. Warner Brothers with Paramount.
Yeah,
That's what we both believe.
absolutely.
And it's the best thing for the industry and the art form and the history. Netflix has zero history, folks. They don't have any respect for it. And you know that by the fact that, they're going to try to kill theatrical windows.
Because it would be in their interest. If I owned them, I would want to kill it too.
Yeah.
But it isn't in the audience's interest. It isn't in the economy's interest. It isn't in the people's interest. It isn't in the culture's interest. Last night I was doing the Lauren and Apollo show, and it was all about old radio, which I have
I
an interest
loved it.
in.
I was in the audience, my friend.
Oh, well.
So, yeah.
Well, but I mentioned the fact that it is absolutely true that in the days before air conditioning, that when people left their windows open, that when Amos and Andy was on, you could walk down any street in America and never miss a moment of the show because everybody was listening to it. And by the way, that was two white guys pretending to be black guys. But anyway, there's a cultural value in shared experience. I know Mel Brooks for a while said that his movies were not allowed to play in a theater bigger than 250 seats. He said, you can book 3 or 4 at the multiplex and put them at odd times, but people have to be near each other. If I'm sitting here and the next guy's 20 feet away, we're not going to laugh the way we're going to laugh as an audience.
Yes.
And well, it's true of all the hot shows. It's true of all the TV shows that are now unspooling for free on Hulu or wherever.
Think about live events, because a lot of people may not have ever been to a professional basketball game, right? There's a reason why the Great Western Forum was the way it was. There's a reason why Celtics Arena was the way it was. Madison Square Garden is the way it was. Like, if you think about all the major basketball stadiums, arenas, whatever you want to call them, they had the intimacy factor built in. And that created larger than life experiences for everybody.
I remember when they opened the quote unquote new Madison Square Garden, and Chick Hearn, who was the great announcer for the Lakers, was so PO'd that the press box was up way away. And he went on the air one night and he said, this stupid place. He says, I'm up here getting a nosebleed nowhere near the game. And I mean, he went on and on about how distancing it was. And of course, the big thing that also made those arenas work was when Ringling Brothers figured out, hey, we don't need the tent anymore. We can make everything so it'll go in these big arenas. And they literally hired guys from NASA to build all of the trapeze rigging and all the poles so that they all condensed and shut down. I had a friend who was a ringmaster with Ringling Brothers, and I went and I watched. It was the last night at the Anaheim Convention Center, as a matter of fact. Wow. And as every act came off, wham, boom, it was packed up, put away, ready to go to the train. And they had it down to a system. It was just, it was brilliant to watch. I always watch the backstage. That's just who I am. They always talk about me at the Pan Pacific Auditorium, which is, if you know those pylons in front of Disney's California Adventure, that's what they were in front of. And my parents talking about taking me there to see the ice capades, and I never watched the ice. I was watching the guys in the rafters with the spotlights, and seeing how they did their thing.
Working the lighting and the lighting rigging and everything. And to me, that's always been fascinating. If I was on stage, it'd be a little different. I was always paying attention to the backs of the security guys.
I have designed magic illusions for people. And I know how virtually everything is done, including making the Statue of Liberty disappear and all the rest of it. And people always said to me,
fly.
Well, that's about wire work, as they say. But
that's fine.
But people would say, well, how can you enjoy it if you know how it's all done? I said, because I enjoy watching how they pull it off, how they do it. Yeah. There was a Japanese magician named Shimada. I don't know how many people ever saw him. I had the pleasure of seeing him many times and meeting him. And this guy did all the standard, making a dove come out of nowhere, and the balls and the fans and the scarves and whatever. These were tricks that were 100 years old.
Yeah.
But it was about his style and the look on his face and the poses he struck.
Delivery.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And,
showmanship. And again, that's why Walt took theme parks seriously. It's sorry I brought it back to that, but it's just the truth.
That's true.
Yeah. He wanted, you were on stage. If you worked for the man, you were on stage. You the minute you entered the doorway and you were in your costume, which could be anything that a cast member wore, you were in costume.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why they called the entire department costuming.
Yes, so, you know. Not uniforms.
No, and
not employees, but cast members.
And janitors were cast members, and they were in costumes. It's like you have a purpose-built set of clothing for your role in this production, and that's something that I think modern Disney has lost. It's something that I think that modern entertainment has lost. It's a conversation that needs to be had. Is that you are important enough in any of those positions to be wearing a costume on stage in a show.
And it's all well and good to tell the incoming audience, the customers, if you will, the guests, hey, we're going to take you to another place.
Mm-hmm.
But you damn well better pay off on that. You damn well better make that true.
It was in Walt made it possible because he took you out of the real world. Because once you crossed underneath the berm at Disneyland specifically, but there is, believe it or not, a de facto berm around every park. They controlled the sight lines. That's a conversation that you'll hear. They controlled the kinetic energy around you at multiple levels to make sure that every element of your eye line was filled with color and motion and sound and sights.
And I'll give you another example. Back in the days before Fantasmic, if you were savvy to this, and you had to be, you'd go up to the dock at the Mark Twain and you'd say, what time is the fireworks cruise? And what it was the last ride before the fireworks show.
That's right.
And they would take it around the back and they would turn off all the lights and they would just sit there in front of the Indian village, because right behind that is where the fireworks were shot off from. And although at one point they stopped turning off the soundtrack, so you had all of these rubber Indians over there going, and it sounded, I don't know what they were really saying in whatever language it was, but it sounded like, go away, go away, go away.
It was a little bit of cacophony. That's for sure.
But the point was, if you told anybody and just transported them to that moment in that river with those trees and the sky, and you said, you're in the middle of the Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County, they'd say, bullshit, no way in hell. And that was the power of that atmosphere and the power of that suspension of disbelief.
And in Magic Kingdom, that'll never exist again.
No, never.
And it's a broader conversation you and I could certainly have, and Vash who
will.
Well, for sure. In fact, that's what this whole show is about. We're going to tell you about everything that happened in the backlots. We'll tell you about everything that happens backstage. I'll talk about what happens backstage in the theme parks. He'll tell you what happens backstage in a television and film production. We're going to talk about these things, and we're going to speak.
It was always fun. There were so many little, not pranks like they do now for meanness, but just to kind of remind people where they were and where they weren't. For example, on the show Major Dad, they got a lot of Marine Corps people coming to the show. Yeah. And the prop guy made up hats, the standard red cap with the ball and anchor Marine logo. Mm-hmm. But you know how those things have the name or the designation of the unit, VMC, whatever, for the airplanes. So they made one that said STG 41. And all the Marines were going, what the hell? What's STG 41? We've never heard of it. And they take them outside, point at the wall. By the way, the wall right behind my doppelganger there, where it said Stage 41.
That's right.
And those kinds of things, nobody on top commanded it. Nobody below said, it just happened because even the people that were in the furthest from glamorous jobs had a sense of being part of that community, of being part of that world. And I don't know if it's there anymore, but I'm not.
No, you were wise. You got out of a place that was falling apart before you did.
Well,
So,
yeah.
that-
And I mean, I was second generation LA, I mean,
Oof.
my mother was born there. My father's family moved there when he was 3 years old. And
I
that's
remember.
why.
I remember when Sepulveda was nice, but that's a
Oh,
different
well, I remember
conversation.
going on a field trip to the San Fernando Mission on Sepulveda before the freeway in rush hour.
Oh, wow.
That was real interesting. That
Oh.
was like the scene at the beginning of 8.5, where everybody's kind of leaning out of the bus, and that's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
But it was a different place, and it will never be again. And that's probably true of every place. And everybody out there has the place that they grew up and how it's changed and all that. But still, if you listen carefully, you can hear the echoes of the time that was. Somebody out there says, Elon, please save Disney. James all day. Elon ain't going to save Disney, guys.
He could have between Pearl Mutter and my goodness, the other businessman who's
but the issue is not that. The issue is if somebody came in tomorrow and they fired all of these awful people that have been brought in the DEI era.
Who do you bring in? Yeah, I know.
I don't know. What do those people do? They sue, and they're right, because their answer, just like famous answers in the past, is, "We was just following orders."
Well, give them new orders and then prepare to fire them.
Well,
Look,
yeah, but who wants to come back? I don't think anybody who went to Universal from Disney is in any mood to trust them again to come back.
Give people
not for
enough
10
rope.
years.
Give people enough rope. And look, you know what? I go out and I get the guys. And honestly, do you know who's doing that? The Ellison kid. That's why we were talking about the show. That's what the show was all about. There's one kid out there that thinks he's gonna rebuild Hollywood the way it was. There's one person.
Well, the way it should be. I won't say the way it was, because there's some things that weren't. But
That's
a
true.
good example, if we can go on a moment or two longer here.
Sure, of course.
Everybody's making a big deal out of, CBS is falling in the ratings and Barry Weiss is no savior and whatever.
That's such a lie.
You have to remember that a lot of people who left all network, including CBS, because they were disgusted when it was political, they aren't even following that maybe it's going to turn back. It's going to take time. And without those people,
well, you have people like me, Lou. That's my job. That's honestly, it's one of the callings I have. Is like I told them via X, whether or not they saw it, cared, paid attention, whatever. But I posted and I told my audience, I'm going to be paying attention to CBS News for you, because if they follow through on this, I'm going to tell you. And it would be a sin if we didn't support somebody trying to move the news back to truth, relevance, quality. If they
usefulness to the audience.
Look. Yeah. There's a difference between factual information and narrative, and that's something that currently CNN cannot do, and PMSNBC has never been able to do. So we'll set all that aside. I'll just say this: that nobody jumped in front of anybody. CBS and all the news services fell down this last week, because compared to a year ago this week, wasn't Trump being put in office? Yeah. Or we're leading into that?
Yeah.
And why would you expect the ratings to be higher a year out when we're not in the midst of a presidential election? And, or any of that. Nobody pays attention closely enough. It's one of the reasons I appreciate WDW Pro and his insight, because he thinks like I do, and it's something he's willing to communicate to all of you. That's what today's show about. Before we got here, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So,
and remember Gertrude Stein's famous edict about Hollywood: behind the fake tinsel, there's real tinsel.
Yeah.
So, although tinsel can be dangerous, I did a show one time where it was Christmas and the camera crews all decided to decorate their camera dollies and cameras with all kinds of Christmas stuff.
Oh, don't do that.
They used tinsel. It's like chaff being set out behind an airplane.
Yes.
It killed all the signals. It killed all the radio.
Okay, and this is where I'm going to give away a military secret.
Uh-oh.
Do you know what countermeasures are on planes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what's a major part of chaff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what glitter is, guys.
Yeah. It's mylar. It's just something that reflects. And well. Anyway.
Now I'm going to be hunted down and slayed. But,
no, I think everybody knows that. What the other guys don't know is how to fight it. Did you see there have been some interviews with Russians who observed the raid on the Iranian?
They're trying to figure that out.
And they're saying that they had all of our best stuff and they never saw them coming. How come? Because your best stuff is crap, is why.
Well, and it's the same reason why everybody around the globe, and especially in Latin America, is freaking, because the Americans came in there with 8 helicopters, 20 guys, and they had no idea what was about to happen.
Yeah, and you've seen these interviews with the Cubans who survived it going, oh, God, don't mess with the USA, for God's sakes.
You have no idea.
We are and all the people that, China's going to invade Taiwan and this and that. No, they have a beautiful aircraft carrier with one of those ski jump noses, but their jets don't have enough poop to get off the nose unless they carry half the fuel and half the armaments. Oops. Little minor miscalculation there.
There's
and it goes on and on like that.
There's 1,000 problems, and we can certainly do that in another show.
Sure.
Look, all I know, Lou, is that
the Pentagon Backlot with Lou and you.
you and I are about to have the best time ever going forward. So for as long as
still, by the way, everybody who's hasn't joined my Patreon yet, I put 2 new episodes up today.
Amazing.
About all of this. But we're looking forward to one of these days. There we go. One of the subjects that the two of us are greatly enamored of and experienced with is vino. And we're going to do an all wine show.
Yeah.
So
look, I come from a family of vintners, so this is going to be fun, kids.
Well,
and
like I said, noses run in my family, but
anyway, what I do know is that I consider it a great privilege to be here with my friend, and I hope to continue this tradition each and every Wednesday for all of you. The Hollywood I almost said that wrong. The Hollywood Backlot with Lou.
Are we talking Tyler Perry now?
I went straight up white girls right there. Sorry, folks.
Okay,
but we'll definitely be doing this on the regular, and I appreciate you. I'm gonna miss Vash and watching you guys, but at the same time, I get a chance to hang out with you and talk about stuff that you and
I'm so happy about it. And no knock on Vash. We had a grand old time, and he's got his own fish to fry, and that's cool.
I know. I'm looking forward to the new Vash channel, guys. I promise you, we're going to promote Vash.
Television may be a vast wasteland, but that won't be a Vash wasteland.
No. He's great, and he's doing good stuff, and he's one of the best people I know, and that's saying an awful lot because I'm surrounded by great people like this guy. He won't tell you.
Every time I get frustrated hereabouts, and it happens occasionally, I say, yeah, but I can't give up on these people. I need them in my life. And listen, if you think I ever thought at this stage of my existence, I'll be 73 on St. Patrick's Day. So you can start shopping for presents now. Like I said, that boat was a real good one.
That's a nice $3 million, but everybody has that.
Well, but I'll pay the docking and the maintenance.
Dude, you're going to need a berth.
Well, yes. This thing, if it'll cruise at 33 knots and go anywhere in the world, wherever I am is the berth. But I'll send you the link. You'll go crazy. I know it's insane, but even so. But my point is, at my age, if you think I thought I would ever become a podcast person, let alone everybody tells me I'm beloved. If I was that beloved, there'd be 500 of you in my Patreon. And so spread the word about how beloved I am. But like I say, my mother keeps saying, aren't you going to make any money at this sometime? And my mother's 98. So she ought to know.
I love her.
So that's my excuse. So make a 98-year-old woman happy and join my Patreon. But anyway, Anyway.
All right. So we're going to get out of here. Do check out his Patreon. It's beautiful. This man I beloved him from the moment I met him. So I've benefited more from this relationship than he has.
I have gained so much, except for what I've lost in storage space from all the gifts I buy you for you to get someday when you get out here. But,
I can't wait because I have a
Christmas
feeling
one came the other day. You're really going to love that.
I'm going to fill the new house with all kinds of stuff. But anyway, we're out of here, folks. For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is again the Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Yours truly, Culture Casino, is the new host. Do follow our friend Vash on his new adventures. Believe me, we'll promote them. And follow me on my channel, Culture Casino. On that note, if you're interested in anything that's real about Hollywood, check out the That Park Place channel. The daily information you get out of there is preposterous. And check out Geeks and Gamers.
Did Vash give you that email address that people can send questions to?
Oh, no, they didn't.
Well, we will next time, but you can, write to us at all the usual places and we'll find it someday, or put it in the comments after this.
Yeah,
because
down below.
I'm happy to answer any question that does not compromise my personal identity. And I'm not some mystery man. The only reason is because there's things I can share as Lou that I cannot share as me because they were under the seal of, well, not confession, but at least of negotiation. So anyway.
Yeah, it's called an NDA, and it's the reason why we have...
I never signed one. I just bought into it by taking the job. So they can't get me on paper, but they can not like me, and I still like those people. So
hey, some of the people like me too. So there's that. Speaking of which, we're out of here. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
I'm not sure what the end button's going to do, so buckle up, kids. Here we go.
And so what we've tried to do is really bring that shape language from the architecture. But like what we love to talk about at WDI is shape language. And we often refer to shape language.
There's such iconic shape language in Spaceship Brevity Attraction. We really wanted to make sure that we fused to that throughout the space.